Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We are breaking into our second poetry type today. We did our found poems, which was a pretty loosey-goosey system that I think made some people feel kind of silly, like they weren't sure that they were writing poetry. So today, I'm going to introduce you to a very classic type of poetry and a very ancient type of poetry. So if you look at my PowerPoint here, which for some reason it won't let me show big, but whatever, you'll see both my video and the PowerPoint. Our second type of poem is the haiku, okay? So let's have a little boo through this PowerPoint and see what we all have to learn. Okay, so the history of the haiku. Haiku is a really ancient type of poetry, and it comes from Japan. And traditionally, haiku poems are about nature. They're about some beautiful part of nature, okay? Or some ugly part of nature. It doesn't matter. Whatever you like. But traditionally, haiku would be about nature. More modern day haiku poems are taken and they talk about a little moment in life. Just a little snapshot of something that is typically sort of insignificant, something that you wouldn't expect to have a poem written about, okay? Another thing that haiku traditionally does is that it contrasts two different things. And this, I would say, is like the upper level of haiku. It's the trickier thing to pull off. Okay, so, that's the one I'm on. The purpose of a haiku. Okay, so let's just have a little boo at the purpose of a haiku really quickly. Whoopsie, get out of there. So what it should accomplish, it should present the reader with a little observation of a commonplace event. So something that is not mind-blowing, something that is small and a little part of life that often wouldn't have attention drawn to it, okay? It should use really simple words. Haikus are about presenting an idea with really minimal amount of words and simple words. And next, it should, as I mentioned before, present some sort of contrast or comparison between two things, okay? So when I introduced the found poem, I found that people needed a little brush up on some poetry lingo, okay? So if we have a little peek at this poem over here, I'm going to fill you in on some very basic poetry language. So this little poem, March, I'm going to read it to you. March, a blue day, a blue jay, and a good beginning. One crow, melting snow, spring's winning. Okay, this is an adorable little poem about the month of March. Beautiful. So there's two things, parts of poetry that we need to see here. One is lines of poetry and the others are stanzas. So anytime that we have a poem like this, each line is called a line of poetry. So anytime that you go down to the next line, that is a line of poetry. It's not quite a sentence. It's just a line of poetry. So you can see here in this poem, we have one line, two lines, three lines, and then there's something fancy called a stanza. And a stanza is a group of lines put together. So a stanza, as you can see over here, it typically kind of separates different ideas in a poem in the same way that paragraphs do. It's like the paragraph of poetry. Okay, that's what a stanza is. It's the paragraph of poetry. So if you have a peek at this poem, it has 6 lines, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it has 2 stanzas. And it's by the beautiful Eleanor Farjeon. Okay, lovely. Excellent. So that's your first little bit of poetry lingo. In case you've never heard these terms before, they're important to know, especially as we break into the haiku, because haiku structure is quite specific. So haiku poems have 3 lines, maximum, never any more. You have 3 lines. Each of the lines has a certain number of syllables And all 3 of those lines form one stanza, okay? So if we look at this little example haiku, it says, like crunchy cornflakes, gold leaves rustle underfoot, beauty in decay. It's awesome! It's simple, it's short, it's beautiful, it's about nature. It contrasts 2 things, right? We have crunchy cornflakes, which is a delightful little food that gets soggy, and then we have crunchy little leaves under your foot. Excellent, perfecto. If we have a peek at these lines, we'll see that line 1 has 5 syllables, line 2 has 7 syllables, and line 3 has 5 syllables again. And if you forget what a syllable is, don't worry, because on the next slide I'm going to go over it. You know what? I'm going to just mention it now. So a syllable is the amount of time it takes you to say a word. Basically, a syllable is a way to break words up into smaller chunks. And my favorite trick for counting syllables is just to clap. Okay, so I'm going to read this poem again, clapping my syllables, and then I'll do it again, counting on my hands. So, like crunchy cornflakes. Did you see that? Like crunchy cornflakes. Boom, 5 syllables. Gold leaves rustle underfoot. So however many claps you get into one word, that's how many syllables that word has. Gold leaves rustle underfoot. 7 syllables. Beauty in decay. Beauty in decay. Okay? Now, if we pop to the next slide, I've got a little video in here for you in case you're still working on syllables. And this video is really fun. It shows you a way to count syllables with clapping. It shows you like to use your robot voice and see how many syllables. My robot voice is not very good, but watch the video and you'll see. And it also shows you a cool trick with the number of times that you open your mouth fully to count syllables. So if you're still needing a little practice on syllable counting, watch this video. It's really awesome. It's a really handy little thing about syllables. Okay, now we're gonna combine all of these things together. So you, in total, are going to create 4 haikus, okay? 2 must be based on the traditional theme of nature, which is quintessential to Japanese haiku. So 2 of your haiku must be about nature, and 2 must be about some small part of life, which is more of a modern haiku, like a haiku about tying your shoe or something like that would be more of a modern style haiku, okay? Oh, also, one thing I want to tell you, the word haiku actually means little poem. So often people call them haiku poems, and that's not actually right because you're saying little poems. So you can just go ahead and call them haiku. You don't have to call them haiku poems. A little tidbit for you. Okay, of your 4 poems, all 4 must have a title, and they must follow the traditional 5-7-5 syllable count, okay? I wrote a couple for you, so I'm going to read them. These are my 2 haiku examples. So first I'm going to read my table, which is my version of a life poem that looks at just a tiny, minute little piece of life that is usually overlooked, okay? Slaving at my desk. My back aches from computing. Time to take a break. That is a very real life haiku for me at this moment. That's my little life haiku. There it is. Time to take a break. And I wrote that because I find that I forget to take the breaks, and I'm sure that some of you do too. It's so important. It's so important to remind yourself in the day, take a little break. Go for a walk. Do some jumping jacks. Get up. Have a relax. Listen to some music. This is really important as we get deeper into e-learning, I think. So, it's my life poem for you. Okay, this is my nature poem. Outside of my home, there is no lush green forest, but sand whispers by. And I actually quite like this one because when I first got to the UAE, I really missed forests. It's one of the things that I really missed. But as I've been here longer, I've started to realize I really like the desert. Like, I really like the sandy silence of the desert. So I wrote this poem entitled Sandpit to honor my new love of the desert. So again, if you want to count them, outside of my home, there is no lush green forest, but sand whispers by. Perfect. Okay. I hope you liked them. So, this is what you are up to. You are going to write your 4 haikus, 2 about nature, 2 about a commonplace life situation, some mundane, tiny, unimportant little piece of life, okay? You're going to choose your favorite haiku of the 4 to present at our poetry circle during today's Zoom meeting, which is at 1 p.m. One quick note about that. The meeting is at 1, but first, before we get to any haiku reading, we are going to go over information on how to sign up for your grade 7 courses. So even if you feel nervous about the haiku, I don't care. You need to be at that meeting at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Miss D, who is your new principal when you get to high school, will be there, and she's going to share some great information. So please do be on time. Please be at that meeting. Okay, so first, after that, you're going to share one of your haiku about nature or a mundane piece of life. And again, the great thing about haiku is that it takes 30 seconds to present. You can't get too nervous in 30 seconds. So it's a really nice one for sharing. Secondly, you're going to choose one of your nature haiku and one of your life haiku to submit to the assignment tab. And to submit these, you can either create a video of you reading your haiku, which is how all poetry should be presented. Poetry is meant to be read and performed, so that's why I so encourage you to make a video of you reading your haiku or submit a Word doc, okay? That's it. Those are your tasks for today. I'm so excited to hear your haiku, and I really am looking forward to giving you some more information today about how to register for your grade 7 classes at our meeting at 1 o'clock. Okay? All right. Everybody have a good day. I'll see you soon.